Oh, dear. We become a race of peeping Toms. What people ought to do is get outside their own house and look in for a change. Yes, sir. How's that for a bit of homespun philosophy?
In Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, one of the overarching themes is watching, or voyeurism. The character L.B. Jeff Jeffries is watching the activities and lives of his neighbors in Manhattan from his rear apartment window during a summer heat wave. Each window, or set of windows, is like its own movie screen, showing the story of the lives of the occupants. The brick dividers between windows are used very creatively, sometimes as an agent that builds suspense, sometimes as a way to show the activities that even spouses try to keep secretly from one another. Drawn window shades can tell a story in and of themselves, especially in such a heat wave. A field photographer, L.B. Jeff Jeffries, is recovering from a broken leg. He watches out the rear window of his apartment, becoming intimately acquainted with the lives of his neighbors, but perhaps not the neighbors themselves. He devises nicknames for them based on his observations. There is Miss Torso, Miss Hearing Aid, the Songwriter, the Salesman and his wife, the Newlyweds, Miss Lonely Heart, and finally we have the couple on the fire escape with their dog. As Jeffries watches from his perch, he believes, based on a series of observations and deductive reasoning, that the salesman has murdered his wife. A plot point that develops doubt and suspense and keeps the audience wrestling with their own opinions is the one missing piece of information that the audience has and that Jeffries does not. As the evidence piles up, Jeffries, with varying degrees of success, attempts to convince his nurse Stella, his girlfriend Lisa Fremont, and his friend Detective Tom Doyle that there has been foul play. We see Jeffries' voyeurism progress as well. In the beginning, when the newlyweds first come into their apartment, he seems almost bashful at watching their embraces. But as the movie progresses, he goes from just watching out the window to using binoculars and even his high-powered telephoto camera lens to watch his neighbors. This progression shows the level of obsession Jeffries develops and his constant insistence that something is wrong, even in the face of what seems like mounting evidence to the contrary. In the end, his keen sense of observation and a healthy dose of meddling by his now accomplices, Stella and Lisa, pays off with the confession of the killer. By the time the killer confesses, the audience is somewhat surprised, thinking that Jeffries has been wrong all along. Hitchcock's masterful manipulation of scenes and events, evidence and arguments leaves the audience believing until the very end that Thorwald might be innocent. At the climax of the film, the killer's confrontation of Jeffries and his confession, you can actually see that the film has been artificially sped up to show the frantic nature of what was going on. The scene where Jeffries falls out of the window looks odd to our modern eye, accustomed to computerized special effects, but was well done for the time period, allowing the audience to see his full body and the looming pavement below. There are many stories that can be told in Rear Window. Each window has its own story, and as the heat wave subsides, each has changed and grown by the end of the movie. It makes you wonder, had there not been a heat wave and the boredom, would Thorwald have gotten away with murder? Were Jeffries' actions justified, or should he have been minding his own business? Was Stella's statement true, that we are a race of peeping Toms? And if so, is that really such a bad thing?